Hi, welcome to Positively Sparking, a podcast on internet marketing, online productivity and business. Today I'm with Tanya Boardman, founder of Doing Not Dreaming Life, a business that seeks to inspire people to do things they thought they never could by sharing stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Hey Tanya, welcome to the podcast.
Hi Phil, how are you doing?
Very good, very good. We were just chatting there before we started, and you've just finished a marathon at the weekend and you're able to come on a podcast on Thursday. That impresses me.
I know, what's even more amazing is I went on what was supposed to be a recovery bike ride yesterday, and I've just worked out it was about 40 miles.
Wow.
But yeah. Fortunately, I didn't know that when I started off, so that's good. But it's all good miles for my charity challenge, so
Indeed it is. And
plugging on with that.
well, there we go. And for anyone who's just hearing this intro to you, they're already impressed. So for those of them who are not sure who you are, tell us who you are, Tanya, and what you do.
I am Tanya Boardman, and well, I do lots of things really. I'm based in Surrey, which is not too far from London, south of London, halfway between the capital and the coast. Always been a variety is the spice of life kind of a person. So always active, doing different kinds of things. And what do I do? I'm kind of beginning to dread that question. Well, I'm getting better at it. But for a long time I wanted, a nice job that was easy to describe in one word or two, that everyone would understand and could nod and move on to something else. But I've never had one of those jobs, and especially now, I don't think I can really be defined by what I do. So the best way to describe it is developing a portfolio career, which includes, amongst other things, running a space technology company, Patina Space. I'm a sports massage therapist, and I run Doing Not Dreaming Life.
There we go, a portfolio career. I like the sound of that. So that's you thinking along the lines of you're going to do everything you really want to do and see what that brings.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it is exploring and trying new things and seeing what I like doing and seeing what works, and then doing more of that until I think something else should come along, and then finding out what that is.
Very good. So today we're going to focus on the doing not dreaming part of your portfolio career.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about what that is and how it came into being.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that it is something that will inspire, motivate and support people to do more of the things that they want to do. And it really came about after reflecting on various comments that I was hearing, either about something that I'd done or about something that people wanted to do. And those comments were loosely around kind of things like, oh, I'd love to do that, but I never could, or you're so brave to do that. And it struck me that, especially in regard to me, it was as if people thought I was really special to have done whatever it was, I don't know, traveling somewhere, running a marathon, for example. But I know I'm, we're all special, but, there's nothing unusual about me that enables me to do that. So I wanted to find a way of sharing stories to let people know that we're all extraordinary people doing ordinary things, and that anything is possible if you decide you want to do it. So that's how it came about.
Very good. So that notion there of people coming to you and saying, wow, that's a really special thing. Kind of like we did when we first started chatting and you told me about your marathon on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And your 40-mile recovery ride yesterday, which to me sounds amazing. So that notion of being special, what do you think that is that stops people from doing something that would make them feel special or stepping outside of what they're doing in the ordinary sense? You use two good words there, extraordinary and ordinary. We're all extraordinary people doing ordinary things. So why do we keep doing ordinary things?
Um, well, there's lots of reasons, kind of around, I suppose, fear of failure. If there's something that you think you really want to do, but maybe you can't do it, or you think that, and that just stops you from trying. Doing something different is a hard thing for us to do. We're hardwired, I think, to stay in our comfort zones because it's safe. You know, going back to how we evolved as humans, really, and any kind of species, you just do the same thing until environment forces you to change. So naturally, there's a resistance to change and to do something different, which means that it can seem like a really big thing. Or in some cases, maybe people just don't know what to do. They don't know how to start. And you quite often only hear stories, you read things about people who are successfully doing really big things, and you don't often hear about how they started or why they started. And that can often be a really small thing. You know, I ran a mile, and that's how you start to train for a marathon, I suppose.
A small step.
Exactly. Yeah. And then by doing that small step, you get confidence and courage and figure out if you actually like what you're doing to then do the next step. And after a while, you can look back and go, oh, I've just done this thing, which, 6 months ago, a year ago, 10 years ago, I never thought I'd be able to do.
Great stuff. And so, Tanya, you live your life in a way that allows you to keep doing these things that you see as things that you want to achieve and to strive towards. And I'm guessing all of those begin with those small steps. So it makes me wonder, what was your first ever small step? Did you grow up as a person who was automatically taking small steps to big things? Or was there a day when you decided, you know what, I want to do this. This is my first step?
I think I've always been reasonably confident in my ability to do something. I don't really think I'm hugely competitive. So for whatever activity, I've never felt any pressure for it to be perfect or to be the best at something, whether that, drawing or making something in a craft environment or riding a horse or running. I do a lot of things just for the joy of doing them. And then sometimes I'll do more of them if I like doing that. And then I might be able to be better at it than other people. There are a few things where I can think, so for example, traveling, I travel quite a bit on my own, which is a big scary thing for lots of people. But I think I can kind of trace that back to a time when lots of my friends went skiing, and I'm not a big fan of skiing, but I wanted to go on holiday. So I sort of had the option of either not going on holiday or going on holiday on my own. And again, there's lots of different ways of doing that. Either I think I went to Berlin, I think, for a long weekend on my own, and I figured, well, I can hole up in a hotel for 3 days if that's the worst thing that's going to happen. Or I can get there and then see what happens. And actually, obviously, it was fine. You go about the city and you see lots of things at your own pace, and it's fabulous. And then to start going to maybe more exotic places, signing up to kind of group holiday type things where, sure, you don't know who else is going to be in that group, but when you put some logic behind it, you think, well, actually, most people are on that holiday. I think I went on a hiking trip to Morocco. Most people are there because they want to go hiking. And so actually that's what you want to do. So at least immediately there's something in common. Alternatively, yes, I dropped myself in it by either being volunteered or volunteering for things that I didn't quite know that I wanted to do. marathon running being one of them, where my friends and I were going to do the London Marathon. We didn't get our places, but because we were members of a running club, they entered us all into the club ballot, and I got one of these prized club places, and I sort of felt the social pressure to accept that place, even though in my head I was going, I don't want to run a marathon. That's a really long way. But once I had that place, I then figured out what to do. I found a training plan, and I just started off with my 3-mile run, which is pretty much all I could do at the time. And by the end of 12 weeks, I managed to run 26 miles.
Very good. 3 miles is about my limit too, Tanya. So let's say there's people out there. So you mentioned there that you've always been confident in yourself, and there's going to be people out there who wouldn't say the same thing. But they still, I'm sure, would like to do something extraordinary in their lives, as we all do in our own way. So how can we get moving and doing?
So I think firstly, make that decision and find something that you want to do, and then take some action. And as we've talked about, it can be small steps. So if you want to travel, buy a magazine or borrow a guidebook, and that's the smallest step you can take, I think. Anything up to just deciding here and now, I'm just going to book that trip. And once you've booked it, you've set something in motion, and an amazing thing will happen. If you're not quite sure what to do, you could find a class. I don't know if it's some kind of exercising or a new hobby. There'll be groups, there'll be classes, or go into a specialist shop and ask for advice. Talking to people who share that interest is a really good way to build confidence, because people love talking about what they love to do, and they will see no reason whatsoever why you can't do that thing too. And you'll get swept up in a wave of enthusiasm to just get started. You'll probably find someone to help you along the way. It's all about starting, and then you can figure out the next step from there. I think if you're a step back from that, and maybe you don't even know what it is you want to do, which is sometimes a barrier to doing these things, because you can think, I just have no idea. I can't remember what having fun is like. What do I enjoy doing? I spend all my time going to work and coming home and eating and sleeping, and that's it. Then just take a little bit of time out and soak up some inspiration, whether that's watching documentaries or TED Talks, podcasts. Flick through your local paper and see what activities are going on. There are hundreds of stuff that happens locally that you probably don't even know and you've never even heard of. But, and then just try something, the maddest thing you can think of, just to break the routine. And there you are already doing something new, doing something different. That's probably the best thing I would say.
So it's very much taking that small first step, which you mentioned earlier on. Yeah,
I mean, there's a phrase which I may have stolen or I may have come up with myself, but action is where the magic happens. You can think about things all you like, but it doesn't really get you anywhere. And if you think too hard about things, it's really easy to get that negative voice in your head, which then comes up with all the reasons why you can't do something. And the only way to get out of that is to take action.
Very much so. There was a phrase I heard this week from a Facebook advertising colleague in the USA. And he said in our chat, it's very easy not to do something, which is almost what you were saying, the other way around. So we can find all kinds of reasons why we shouldn't do something, but keeping on that path of action where we actually make something happen is very, very difficult. So I wondered, Tanya, if you had any tips for people who have started something and they're now at that stage where they're perhaps regretting it. Maybe the first time you booked your trip away to Berlin and a week later you probably thought, what have I done? So how do you keep going when those doubts come into our mind?
Yeah, and I've definitely had that for travel destinations. And my way of dealing with it, which is a great way to do it, I think, is to think, what's the worst that can happen? So, for example, I went to Japan and I don't speak Japanese, and I had a bit of a panic of like, what if I get there and it all goes wrong? And so I broke it down, and it's like, well, I'm there for 10 days. All I have to do is get from Tokyo Airport to Osaka Airport in 10 days, because that's where my flights are going in and out of. So regardless of the fact that I had this whole amazing trip booked, I just thought, well, actually, I'm going to go, and if I get to Tokyo Airport and everything's in Japanese and nothing makes sense and there's nobody there to help me, all I have to do is get to Osaka Airport, and I can stay at either airport for 10 days. But, so I break it down into what is the worst that can happen. And if you do that, you'll get to some level where you will go, actually, that's ridiculous. That is never going to happen. So let's just go and do it.
Sure.
I think that's kind of my easy and fun way of getting over any worries.
The worst. What's the worst that can happen? And almost using that as a bargaining chip with the side of ourselves which is a bit more anxious, perhaps, and a bit more concerned. So what actually happened when you went to Japan? I'm taking it everything went smoothly. The signs were in English as well.
Well,
and it was all.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. I mean, actually, I think I did get to Tokyo, and there was a nice gentleman there with a sign with my name on, which confused me because that wasn't supposed to happen. And it turns out that my luggage was still in Helsinki. But so, it was like, oh no, what do I do? But because it's Japan and because everything works so well, I had to fill in a form and tell them where my hotel was. And, they apologized profusely and said, don't worry, we'll get your luggage to you as soon as it arrives. Off you go, and it'll be with you the next day or something like that. And then as I was sitting on the right train into the center of Tokyo, I was thinking, well, this is great. I'm here. I'm not having to carry my luggage. I can just get straight into the city and off I go. But yeah, it was, of course, absolutely fine. But I still do have those moments of traveling where I think, well, I'll just stay in the airport for however long, because, if it's really that bad, and it's never been that bad. And again, I think it's useful to kind of almost have that real baseline. And I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who did a mountain marathon in Scotland in the rain, in the cold, where you're out for a couple of days and you have to camp. And so everything we talk about now, we go like, well, is it as bad as the mountain marathon in Scotland where you're shivering in a tent, wet, cold, nowhere to go? And it's like, no, it's not. We can get through this. So it is quite good, I think, to have that. You can have that real baseline as well as going to the ridiculous of, yeah, I'm going to sit in an airport for 10 days.
Definitely so. And that's a cool thing to do, is to think about what's the worst thing we've ever had to go through. It'd be great to know what everyone else's worst thing they've ever had to go through is.
Yeah.
And I did something similar to that with myself, where I had a period of time where I had a really serious back injury that needed surgery, and I couldn't walk for 3 months.
Wow.
So that is my sort of go-to. What is this really bad, Phil? Is it as bad as being on a hospital bed and not knowing if we're ever going to walk again? And the answer is always no.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think it's great to have a really negative experience, not that you wish that on anyone, to bounce from, but then also to give ourselves the kind of safety blanket as you did, with the idea of staying in an airport hotel for 10 days, if it really is bad.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
So, Tanya, this podcast has a lot of people listening to it who are entrepreneurs of a kind, business owners, people who want to make their business grow. So do you find that entrepreneurs dream rather than do in the same way that we might do in our everyday sense?
Well, I guess, entrepreneurs are people too, so there's going to be a big mixture of people. But I don't think it's uncommon for people to have those limiting beliefs and to write things off before they've started. And in business, that could be because someone else has done it before, and whether they've failed or succeeded, you either go, well, therefore it's not going to work, or they're doing it already. What can I add to this? When actually you don't necessarily need to add anything. You'll just do that thing in your own way and be successful from there. And also, I think when you're an entrepreneur running your own business, especially at the startup time, you can get really stuck in the detail and feel like you have to do everything and forget to take that step back and look over the business parapet, asking yourself, why am I doing this? And is this what I want my business to be? So you kind of lose sight of the dream a bit, even though you're being busy in your business, doing all the things that need to be done. I think it's quite easy to not take that step back and say, hang on a minute, I set up this business either to do this amazing thing, to build this amazing product, or to live the life that I want to do, and to maintain questioning as to, am I doing that? Are all these things that are taking up my time really helping me to get to that end point?
Definitely so. I think when we have a business, there are so many things that come into that business that can take our enthusiasm and our energy away from that original cause. And you're right in the sense that every business is about that original cause, which is really our brand. But everything else that comes into it, so that can be, doing your tax return every January, doing your company accounts, which I find really boring. I know many other business owners do as well. And, people who come at your business in a negative sense and criticize it, or complain about something that you're doing, all these other things can really take that energy away from you. So I'm guessing that also happens when we do a personal challenge as well. We have people who support it and people who strike against it. So how do you manage the fact that people will say, well, why are you doing that? That's really dangerous, Tanya. You must be crazy. You need to go away and think about it. How do you manage the external negative voices and stop them from taking your enthusiasm and your energy from a project?
Yeah, and that can be really hard, because just as we're fighting against not changing and remaining in our comfort zone, so our friends and family, they've nicely packaged us all up into our own little box. And when you start mentioning that maybe you're going to do something different, like leave your job and travel around the world or start your own business, these warning sort of signals go out to our nearest and dearest to say, "Whoa, are you keeping yourself safe? I need to keep you safe. I need to get you back in that safe box." And different ways of dealing with it. I think you've got to be clear that you are doing what you want to do. And again, it's not someone else's dream, which is another easy trap to fall into. And also try and find people that get this sense of adventure and that will support you in doing what you want to do, and be a sensible sounding board, because there will be groups of people who will be doing similar things that you can get in touch with either in real life or online, and that can really help when you're having those tough conversations with your friends. And I think sometimes you have to just not talk about it with certain people, because the reaction you're going to get. And if you're in a vulnerable position where you're wobbling about anything, you definitely don't need someone saying, well, I told you so. Well, I did mention that this probably wouldn't work out for you, because it will be working out. It may just take a bit longer or turn into something different. But as long as you're holding on to your dreams, I think, and you're confident in yourself, you've got that vision, then it's definitely the right thing to do. I tend to, I'm probably, not a hugely risky person. So I tend to de-risk things as much as I can by planning where I can, and maybe having a sort of some kind of plan B in the background, or saving some money, and that's always nice to have a bit of a financial buffer. And everyone's different, so you've got to find your own level of risk that you're happy, that you're comfortable with, and choose your tribe carefully, I think, because there are definitely people out there who will support what you do and will help you find the way to do it your way. It just may be a bit of a surprise to friends and family who will see you in a certain way, and you're suddenly telling them something completely different, which then makes them question either their judgment, maybe they're questioning what they're doing in their lives. And there's a whole host of emotional things, I think, that will result from that. But stick with it, and maybe choose the conversations you have with the people you have them.
I love the phrase you used there of other people wanting you to get back in your safety box.
Yeah.
And that was a really good analogy, because you can see that image of people want you to stay in a certain place because you not doing so disturbs their life. So I'm going to encourage everybody to build their own safety boxes, just like you do. So when you're planning your trips, you make sure that you plan the part you want to, you've de-risked it in the sense of knowing where your lines are. And so in many ways there, Tanya, you've created your own safety box. It's not someone else's that they've asked you to go into. It's your own. And I think that's a great way of looking at it, whether it's a personal challenge or a business challenge. If we do go and form our own business, in 6 months' time, what's the worst thing that can happen? You could say we'd be homeless and we'd be absolutely devoid of any money.
Exactly.
But both of those things can be fixed.
And also, actually for some people, that may not be the worst thing that can happen. I mean, that's not something that I necessarily want. But again, let's let everyone make their own decisions about it. And that's where what's the worst that can happen comes in, because, maybe you like camping. Who knows?
One thing I do is I compare the future vision of my life of doing something versus not doing something. Mm-hmm. And that's often what tells me whether I should do this. So even though I know it might be tough and I know it's going to be a challenge, if I don't take this opportunity or this challenge which is coming up to me, what will my life be like in 6 months' time without it? And that balance of, is it better or not, or more negative, is often how I make choices, even about which new client inquiries are going to be the ones we want to work with. I try and do that much more now.
Yeah.
Where I'm trying to make a choice about who I do want to work with and who I don't. And I think it's a great way to look at every day. It takes sometimes a bit of courage and a bit of time to get yourself in a scenario where you can allow yourself to make choices. A new business often isn't able to choose customers in the beginning. And sometimes they're not even able to choose services. They need to adapt and offer what the market requests. But I think every business has to get to the point where they are waking up every day and thinking, right, this is what we want to achieve today. How do we get closer to it? Rather than seeing what comes through the door and letting those actions and those activities shape what their business becomes. Different things.
Yeah, it's getting to a stage of being proactive rather than reactive, and I guess leading your business, leading your life. Exactly. This is what I'm aiming for. So what are the steps? Who are the clients? What are the actions I need to take to get there?
Absolutely.
I mean, there's you only regret the things you haven't done. Nice cliche that we can pull out here. And I think that can also drive people, especially, I don't know, maybe you get to a certain birthday and, that's the trigger where you think, hang on a minute, life is always ticking on and I don't want to get to my next milestone birthday without having done these things. So I better get on with it. And that's, again, the fear of, what might my life look like in 5-10 years' time if I just carry on doing what I'm doing at the moment and don't make any changes.
Definitely so. So Tanya, with that concept of getting on with it, let's talk about your business. So tell us about how you could help a person or an entrepreneur with your business doing not dreaming, change their life, make sure they reach some milestones before their next anniversary.
Yeah, so I tend to start with formulating a bit of a plan based around a vision or a dream. So we get, digging into what is it that you want and making sure that it is what you really want, not, what you think your particular business should want. Because I think I said that earlier. It's really easy to, to say, for example, I'm a coach and therefore coaches do this, therefore I've got to do this. But maybe that's not really how I want to run things. So firstly, it would be looking at what it is and where you want to get to. And then coming up with a bit of a plan, really. Yeah, breaking it down into different sections and what are the steps that need to happen and what's the first step you need to do. So there's an accountability as well. Have you done that thing you said you were going to do? If not, let's talk about why not, because either it's too big a step or it's not really in the right direction and you're feeling that resistance to it. Or maybe this isn't for you. But yeah, I think it's working out what the first step needs to be and having someone who's accountable for you and supportive as well, by giving you that permission to take that step, to plan your around the world trip, or to get you started in finding your first clients before you finished your website. So that, business grows.
I think that's great, Tanya. I think there's many ways we can do that. I think some of us try and do that for ourselves. That can be quite tough. Other people might have friends or a group of people who can help each other be accountable for things.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's people like yourself, third parties who can help us on a professional level. And I think it's often good to have someone who is a third party outside your life, outside of your company, who's looking at what you're doing with very fresh eyes. So let's say somebody wants to go ahead and do that. Where can we find you online?
So I have a website which is doingnotdreaminglife.com, and that's got my blog on it with all those stories about inspirational people, and it's got details of events and how you can work with me. I am on Facebook, which again is Doing Not Dreaming Life, I think, and I am on Twitter as myself, which is Tanya Boardman.
Great stuff. So Tanya, it's been so good having you on the podcast today, thinking about how we're all going to change our lives and hit those fantastic things we want to do before our next big anniversary.
Yeah, can you tell I've just had my birthday?
Well, you're making me think about my next big anniversary is 5 years' time.
Yeah.
So I'm leaving this podcast thinking, what am I going to do in the next 5 years?
Well, let me know.
Absolutely, I shall do. And so any final message you want to give to everybody?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've been talking about taking small steps, but let's not be afraid to dream big, because that's where the narrative is heading. And, if we only think as far as your next step, it's going to be, you're going to kind of be a bit short-sighted and miss out on other random opportunities. So don't be afraid to dream big and then figure out what steps are that need to be taken to get there. I like to think of think of life really as a bit of a choose your own adventure book, which I used to read avidly as a child. At the end of each page or section, you have to choose what happens next, and so you get to determine how the story pans out. And the thing you can take away from that is that there are no wrong choices. You always get to the end of the book. You just maybe have a slightly different adventure. But you actually have to make the choice and you have to turn the page. And, there was never the option of, well, when it's the right time, turn to page 86. So that's really the key message, I think. And as we touched on, the consequences of not doing, you just have that nagging feeling inside that things don't quite sit right, and that there's more of you to give, I suppose. And so that's the thing. We always say that when we're asked, how are things? What are you doing? Oh, everything's fine. And I think it can be so much more than fine, because if you just live with being fine, I mean, that's good, but it can be so much better. And if you're not being honest with yourself about how big things can be and how good things can be and exactly what it is you want to be, then you're doing yourself a bit of a disservice, and everything's possible.
Great stuff. So what we need to listen to those voices inside, dream big and do extraordinary things. Sounds
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here, Tanya.
A pleasure.
Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
My name is Phil Byrne, and I'd like to thank you so much for listening today. I hope you got something really good to take away from this week's episode for you or your business. And you know what? I'd like to give you something more. In fact, I'd like to give you a whole free web marketing pack full of all my latest and best ideas on how you can take your business forward positively online. Download your pack at positivesparks.co.uk/pack. And most of all, guys, look forward to seeing you again next week.